Okay, does anyone else feel like there are 12 tabs open in your brain and one of them is playing music, but you can't find it? Uranus and the Sun are now in Gemini, bringing lots of ideas, quick communication, and an unpredictable energy. And if that doesn't make your head spin, the upcoming Sagittarius Full Moon will illuminate any possible misalignments between our current external circumstances and our authentic internal philosophy. So get cozy and let's get into it. What is up, my witches? Welcome to the Queer Soul Alchemy podcast, a supportive community helping queer folks to embrace their authentic selves by exploring yoga, astrology, and spirituality. I'm your host, Lee Davey. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host and favorite queer NB priestess, Lee Davey. And I'm like if your mom friend, your eccentric great aunt, and your nerdy older brother were all smushed into the same person, and then that one person took an eat, pray, love style sabbatical and just came back knowing astrology. And in this episode, we're diving into the current astrological weather, Gemini season, Uranus's recent transit into Gemini, and what to expect for the Sagittarius full moon coming up on Sunday, May 31st. Then we'll explore the symbolism of the Gemini-Sagittarius axis, which is the axis of truth-seeking, and learn why information does not necessarily equal wisdom. But first, new episodes of this podcast drop every Wednesday, posted on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And in order for this podcast to continue, this is the part of the show where I am obliged to beg of you, please leave the show a like, a comment, and a 5-star review. And won't you subscribe so that we can continue to help our fellow queer spiritual seekers find this magic? Won't somebody think the use? Seriously, you guys, your engagement on any level helps this podcast grow so much and reach more people that need it. So like, share, comment, subscribe, please, and thank you. I appreciate you so much. And don't miss out on exclusive access to my free self-care resource guide, which I've specifically curated for you to support your journey with spirituality. To download this guide and be the first to know about upcoming queer yoga events and retreats, please sign up for our email newsletter at youareloved.one/pod. All right, you guys, let's dive into that astrology. Is Mercury in the microwave again? No, as we discussed in our last astrology episode, Mercury is not in retrograde currently, but Pluto did go retrograde on May 6th, and all the other planets are direct until the next Mercury retrograde starts in July. However, y'all may have noticed technology glitches and technical difficulties, almost like Mercury retrograde, because we did recently have a Mercury Cassini. And you may have also noticed strange or unpredictable occurrences over the past month or so. If you've been feeling this ungrounded energy, you're likely noticing the shift of both the Sun and Uranus from the stable, fixed Earth sign of Taurus into the spontaneous, mutable air sign of Gemini. This is a major energetic shift, you guys. Uranus is the planet of rebellion, radical change, and sudden breakthroughs in innovation, electricity, and technology. It's been in Taurus since 2019, and I think that this stable and cautious energy has really neutralized Uranus's eccentric riz over the past 7 years. Uranus energy and Taurus energy are very opposite, so I feel like it kind of just neutralized it out. But Uranus moved into Gemini on April 25th, and Uranus in Gemini notes will be flavoring our collective cosmic cocktail until May 22nd of 2033, so for the next 7 years. In my observation, this chaotic and unpredictable energy significantly increased over this past week when the Sun also moved from Taurus into Gemini on May 20th. So since we'll be dealing with this energy individually for sure over the next month and collectively over the next 7 years, let's go ahead and dive deeper into the archetype of Gemini. Gemini energy is all about curiosity, communication, and queer exploration. Gemini season runs from May 21st to June 21st. The archetypes are the twins, the journalist, and the student. Gemini is the mutable air sign, ruled by Mercury, planet of intellect, language, and perception. Gemini also rules the 3rd house of early childhood, siblings, communication, memory, broadcasting, and intellect. So, first we had Aries, bringing us that sense of existing as an individual self or ego, right? Then we had Taurus, grounding and embodying that consciousness through the physical senses. So, if Taurus is the physical body, then Gemini is our mind. Gemini asks questions, gathers stories, and thrives in conversation and community. Gemini energy is also related to the throat chakra and to all the pairs of things in our bodies. So our eyes, our ears, kidneys, lungs, etc. And the breath is a bridge between our mind and our body. So Gemini energy really accentuating that mind-body connection. Breath work is a great technique for Gemini to stay grounded and then connected again to the body and centered in the mind. Quick-witted, analytical, irreverent, and often hilarious, Gemini energy thrives on learning. They absorb information rapidly and sometimes forget it just as quickly because their curiosity is already chasing the next idea. Gemini is the sign that enthusiastically asks the next question before you've even finished your sentence. As the mutable air sign, Gemini is adaptable and social. They're natural communicators and responsive listeners, masters of reading between the lines, and able to mirror different personalities with ease, so hence the twin archetype. Geminis can blend in seamlessly into different social groups and spaces, bringing unlikely people together, facilitating conversations, friendships, and community between them. The twins archetype reflects duality, not inconsistency, but complexity and paradox. Gemini can hold multiple perspectives at once, even perspectives that appear to contradict each other because they value curiosity above being right or wrong. And for many queer folks, learning to adapt our behaviors between worlds, between biological and chosen family, safety and authenticity, tradition and liberation, this kind of adaptable quality maybe became necessary for survival. So even if you don't have a lot of Gemini energy, you might be able to relate to Gemini and the other mutable signs for that quality, right? Fitting in and self expression can both be true at once with Gemini energy. The shadow side of Gemini, though, is that when the mind is always active, it can spiral into overthinking, overwhelm, and anxiety, or get stuck in analysis paralysis, trying to solve all its problems intellectually. Gemini often tries to logic through or laugh off their emotions instead of simply slowing down and feeling their emotions in their body. The defense mechanism is this belief that if I can analyze it and understand it, then I don't have to feel it and experience it somatically. So they can struggle with intellectualizing their emotions, and they can also struggle a bit with commitment, being the mutable air sign. This impulse to run from the discomfort of silence and stillness can manifest as so many distractions for a Gemini. People and socializing makes a wonderful distraction, right? And healthy relationships are important, but when one person's identity is shaped by reflecting another's, when that same person is alone, the solitude can feel destabilizing for their identity. Without a designated person or group to reflect, the Gemini native may wonder, who am I really? The mind can spin, and overthinking and anxiety then take over. So, Gemini's deeper lesson is integration, slowing down, being present mentally, and allowing all the information that they collect to actually settle and integrate into their physical body. If Gemini is your sun sign, your identity centers around communication, adaptability, and a lifelong love of learning. If Gemini is your moon sign, your emotional world processes through thought and conversation. You feel safest when you can express yourself through writing or verbally. If Gemini is your rising sign, others experience you as witty, intelligent, highly sociable, and possibly flaky or scattered. If your Venus sign is in Gemini, you need to be mentally stimulated in order to fall in love. You may be especially attracted to intelligence, enjoy long conversations with your loved ones, and appreciate variety when it comes to your romantic and relational affairs. If your Mars sign is in Gemini, you are likely called a Renaissance person who can do a fair job at many different skills, but who is a master of none. Your many interests may make it difficult for you to go deep and commit to a single path, but that can also kind of be a strength, and you're likely good at working with your hands and enjoy it. So we know that Uranus is a collective planet that symbolizes sudden awakening, psychological breakthroughs, and the call to liberation. Uranus represents breaking free from outdated systems, embracing authenticity, and aligning with truth, even if that comes through disruption and destruction. So last astrology episode, we did talk a lot about Pluto in Aquarius, representing the return of power to the people, the collective, the many rather than the few, and how Pluto retrograde symbolizes turning inward to find that power inside of ourselves. This Pluto retrograde in Aquarius energy, combined with this transit of Uranus into Gemini, fills me with so much hope for humanity, you guys. And let me tell you, we'll take every drop of hope we can get over here, okay? Uranus in Gemini gives rise to a restless and curious collective mind, which is ready to explore new paradigms, new languages, new ways of learning and thinking. And Uranus in Gemini represents quantum leaps in communication, technology, and the disruption of rigid traditional systems. It marks a shift of the collective's psychological orientation toward mental freedom, spontaneous insight, and questioning the status quo. I believe that an early example of the energy of these planetary transits manifesting here on Earth is Zohran Mamdani being elected as mayor of New York City. And in the wake of his success, several very progressive socialist political candidates have been starting to pop up around the country. So reflect, you guys, which house does Gemini rule in your chart? And do you have planets in Gemini? If so, these areas will be highlighted during Gemini season. And you also might find the house that is ruled by Gemini in your chart to be getting shaken up. So the themes that that house rules are changed radically in your life over the next 7 years as a result of this transit. Another reflection question for Gemini season is, where am I intellectualizing my emotions instead of actually experiencing them and feeling them somatically, as in my body? And what would it look like to sit in silence without any mental stimulation for even just a few minutes each day? Moving on to the full moon at 9 degrees of Sagittarius, that's coming up on Sunday, May 31st at 4:44 a.m. EST. Sagittarius is the mutable fire sign, y'all. So we have the sun in mutable air, which is Gemini, and the moon in mutable fire, which is Sagittarius. And if you have a lot of mutable energy in your chart, including the mutable earth sign Virgo and the mutable water sign Pisces, then you will be impacted more by this transit. So again, any of the mutable signs, Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces, if you have those in your chart, then you will likely be really feeling this upcoming Sagittarius full moon. Sagittarius is the archetype of the archer, the philosopher, and the professor. It is the mutable fire sign ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, optimism, and abundance. Sagittarius is the adventurer, explorer, and seeker, intellectually, spiritually, and geographically. And this exploration also happens internally through reflection on philosophy and the human condition, as well as externally through travel, culture, and spiritual experiences. Sagittarius energy values principles without dogma and loves truth, but questions and rebels against authority. At its highest vibration, Sagittarius is generous, noble, and courageous, even poetic, and it's a spiritual warrior vibe. There's a likability and a big-hearted optimism here that feels contagious, a sense of ethical integrity, like someone you can trust. Jupiter is referred to as the greater benefic in astrology, and it gives Sagittarius its lucky influence and faith in possibilities. When life knocks a Sagittarius placement down, they tend to rise up like a phoenix with wisdom and perspective rather than bitterness. They're optimistic, unabashed, and bluntly honest. And as the mutable fire sign, Sagittarius adapts quickly and moves from idea to idea, philosophy to philosophy, always hungry for stimulation and spiritual meaning. This archetype feels like refusing to stay confined inside of the inherited belief systems that we never consciously consented to follow. This Sagittarius full moon will illuminate any possible misalignments between our current external circumstances and our authentic internal belief systems. This archetype inspires us to question everything, especially the unspoken rules that told us what we're allowed or supposed to be. What is your unfiltered truth? But just like every sign, Sagittarius has both strengths and weaknesses. Sagittarius's likable honesty, humility, and boisterous, free-spirited nature earn these natives a warm welcome at many tables, and people want to keep them around. The shadow side of Sagittarius is loving freedom so fiercely that responsibility can feel like a threat to them. This desire for adventure can become an avoidance strategy, and they can lose interest in committed relationships, ending up hurting others. Similarly, instead of pausing or going deeper to integrate spiritual or intellectual wisdom, this energy can chase highs, new experiences, new teachers, new places, without grounding enough and committing to depth. To an extent, all of the mutable signs experience this. So Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces can all struggle with follow through, focus, and commitment because of that mutable energy. So this full moon transit may be shining the light of consciousness on any areas of weakness around this for us. Therefore, the immature expression of Sagittarius energy can be a reckless, unreliable, short tempered, or even entitled person when optimism warps into straight up delusion. Fire without proper grounding can certainly burn, and Sagittarius can be prone to losing their temper and cutting people off. Faith without discipline can become fantasy, so it's important for Sagittarius energy to keep a routine to stay grounded and find ways to stay consistent, even if there is resistance to that. The real lesson of the Sagittarius full moon isn't just exploration and gathering information, it's actual integration. Because information and even experience on their own does not necessarily equal wisdom. The wisdom comes from sitting with that information and those experiences and making some kind of meaning from them, understanding how that information or those experiences affect you and others and the world. It's mind plus emotions, smart plus heart, and intentionally pausing to feel, not just mindlessly going through the motions. So this full moon asks us, can you gather wisdom, not just information, from your experiential or metaphorical travel and apply that wisdom in your life? Can you stay present when things get uncomfortable or aren't always just simple and fun and easy instead of bolting toward the next thrill? Which house does Sagittarius rule in your chart? And do you have planets in Sagittarius? These areas will be highlighted for this upcoming full moon. Where am I chasing expansion but avoiding responsibility? And where might commitment actually deepen my freedom? So now we know about Gemini and we know about Sagittarius. And you guys, the Gemini Sagittarius axis is the axis of the student and the professor. Gemini represents the journalist who gathers and organizes information, while Sagittarius represents the philosopher who reflects on deeper meaning. Mutable air and mutable fire balance on this axis that governs knowledge, wisdom, and truth. And as we noted before, even an abundance of information on its own does not necessarily mean wisdom. Wisdom or knowledge comes from sitting with the information and then making meaning from it. Gemini represents the analytical mind, ideas, and conversation. Gemini wants to understand everything and have the answer to all the trivia questions. Across the wheel, Gemini's sister sign, Sagittarius, seeks spiritual meaning and integrated experiential wisdom. While Gemini asks, what's interesting? Sagittarius asks, what's true? This axis reminds us that knowledge comes in two forms: intellectual information and embodied wisdom. Gemini can collect facts endlessly, sometimes getting stuck in overthinking or analysis paralysis. And Sagittarius can take a leap of faith without verifying details, mistaking pure belief for evidence. Both energies need each other, and as always, the key is in the balance. The student and the professor are not adversaries, but rather counterparts and equal complements to each other. This polarity asks for authenticity and integration. Let your mind stay curious, but let your higher self lead. This can mean questioning inherited religious or cultural narratives while grounding yourself in your own lived experience and educating yourself about the lived experiences of people who are different from you. Where Gemini can drown in the details, Sagittarius can jump to conclusions. Instead, let information expand into wisdom and let curiosity mature into conviction. Reflect. Are you stuck in the weeds of any tiny details on something, or are you avoiding nuance in favor of big, sweeping philosophies? This episode's virtual challenge is a 2-step challenge that is meant to help you with the integration process, and it is called Write and Listen. So you can practice this ritual anytime within a window of 3 days before and 3 days after the full moon is exact in Sagittarius on Sunday, May 31st at 4:44 a.m. EST. The first step is the Gemini portion of the practice. Choose several of the reflection prompts that have been offered so far in this episode to use as journaling prompts. And I'll repeat those prompts in just a moment. If you want to pause this episode and grab your journal to jot those down right now. I'll wait. Go ahead and pause. Okay, so you don't have to answer all of these prompts unless you want to, but just write down a few or at least one of the following prompts to use for your journaling. Which house does Gemini rule in your chart, and do you have planets in Gemini? Where am I intellectualizing my emotions instead of actually experiencing and feeling them in my body? Which house does Sagittarius rule in your chart, and do you have planets in Sagittarius? Is there somewhere in life that I'm avoiding responsibility, and where might commitment actually deepen my sense of freedom? Am I getting stuck in analysis paralysis, or am I spiritually bypassing anything? So choose from those prompts and write them down, and then journal freely on each prompt that you chose for about 3 to 5 minutes without stopping. We're doing this free writing style, you guys, so let your thoughts spill out uncensored. Don't stop to add grammar or reread it or edit. And use a timer for each prompt so that you're only writing for that 3 to 5 minutes and stop writing when the timer goes off. When you're all done journaling, then move on to the next step to tap into your higher knowledge and intuition. The second step of this ritual is the Sagittarius component of this practice. So practice any type of meditation that you like for this. You can simply sit in silence for a few minutes, or there are many guided meditations available through QSA's online platform. And there's even a free meditation and breathwork session here on the podcast hosted by me. If you go all the way back to season 1, episode 3. So choose your practice, any practice that you would like, some type of meditation. And after that, from a mentally and now spiritually grounded place, go ahead and now reread what you wrote for your journaling prompt. And you can take a colorful pen or maybe a pretty color highlighter and go through and just note down or highlight or circle any sentences or phrases that feel very true for you. So, not that it's coming from fear, not that it's coming from ego, but just straight clarity and truth. And just reflect on that. And then you can continue journaling about any insights that come up after that, or just simply observe the effects of kind of getting all of your thoughts just out onto the paper and then just allow it to let go. And if you'd like, you can even burn your paper. We've talked about that multiple times on the podcast. Anytime we have a full moon and a fire sign, hey, never a bad idea to go ahead and burn that paper and just energetically and physically release whatever it is that you feel has been holding you back. The fire will also just help with your clarity. This practice is about getting clear. So sit with the effects of the practice and share in the comments what you notice. To summarize, in this episode, we explored how Gemini season, the Gemini archetype, and Uranus's recent transit into Gemini are all shaking up stability and the status quo, both for the collective and for each of us personally in our daily lives. We unpacked the astrological forecast for the upcoming Sagittarius full moon, which will represent the alignment of our outer circumstances with our inner truth, even if that means by disrupting and self-destructing. Then we learned how the Gemini Sagittarius axis invites us into integration, giving our knowledge a chance to mature into wisdom. And if you're ready to dive deeper into your personal natal chart and explore how Gemini and the rest of your astrology shape your relationships, your career, your self-worth, and life purpose, then please schedule an astrology meeting with me today on the QSA website at yourloved.one/readings. Join our online community platform for just $11 per month, you guys, to access exclusive new monthly content, over 10 hours of video workshops, including a deep dive into the 12 archetypes of astrology, and meet like-minded queer folks who are also on a yogic path and spiritual journey. Our guided community meditation for Gemini season is up now in the platform, along with many other yoga videos and guided meditation videos that are all available for just $11 a month in our exclusive online member catalog. This is basically like our Patreon to you guys. So in addition to all of those benefits for you, joining our online platform also really supports the podcast as well and helps QSA keep this content publicly available completely for free. We are 100% funded by listeners like you. So thank you so much for your support. To sign up now, go to yourloved.one/online-membership. And if you can't join right now, your energetic support also goes a really long way and is super, super appreciated. So follow, subscribe, comment, do all the things. You can't go wrong hitting any of the buttons on your screen. Thank you all so much for your energy and support. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, let's stay connected and stay witchy. I'll talk to you soon, and blessed be. With all my love, Lead 80.